This is about defending democracy. This is no longer Democrats versus Republicans. What do you want your kids to believe in? There must be give and take.
This is White Flag with Joe Walsh.
Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy. I believe that, I do, but every time I say that Trump is a threat to democracy, a bunch of somebodies say, Joe, what do you mean? Joe, explain it. Joe, that's just some Democratic talking point. Tell me what you mean. Give me an example. Prove it, Joe. Hundreds of people every time, sometimes thousands of people, depending on where I say or post that, respond with that. Explain it. Prove it. Tell me what you mean by a threat to democracy. Show me. Don't tell me, Joe. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a series called Trump is a Threat to Democracy. Let me count the ways. And I will at once a week, I'll put out an example showing you exactly how and why Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. I should say at the outset that I don't believe there's anything more important than this. What are we going to do about the border? What are we going to do about healthcare? What are we going to do about tax reform? Are we going to keep giving money to Ukraine? What are we going to do defending Israel? Every single issue, policy issue, pales in comparison, I hope you agree with this, to the survival of our democracy, right? Like if we don't have a democracy, it really doesn't matter what we say about healthcare reform or tax reform. I believe defending our democracy is more important than any policy issue. So let's get to it. Yes, Donald Trump is, and I said this last night, Donald Trump is a real threat to our democracy. And right away, a bunch of people said, show me, explain that to me. What do you mean? Prove it. Those are just Democratic talking points. By the way, let me say this. Democrats telling me what to say. Let me just say this really clearly. Nobody tells me what to say. Nobody pays me to say anything. I say what I believe, good, bad, or ugly. I will always tell you what I think. Nobody pays me. No talking points. Let's get to it. Here's one example. Wendy, a woman named Wendy last night, was one of the hundreds who said, Joe, there you go again, threat to democracy. What do you mean? Okay, Wendy, here's what I mean. Let me give you one example. I'll start with just one example this week of how Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy. Here's what I mean. Here's example number one. He refuses to accept results of elections that he loses. Let me repeat, Wendy. When he loses an election, he refuses to accept the results. He refuses to concede. He did that in 2020. He still hasn't conceded. Donald Trump lost an election in 2020. He did not accept that loss. He's doing it again this year. Trump is telling us that he will not accept the results of this election in 2024 if he loses. He refuses to accept the results when he loses. Like, that's a threat. Like, that's a bad thing. We have this country. Every 2 years, we elect people to represent us, right? Elections are like the heartbeat of this thing we call America. Without elections, what do we have? What sort of a representative government do we have? We have these things called elections. Every 2 years, people run for office and they work their butts off to win, and we support whoever, and there are winners and losers. And what makes these elections work is and I've been in this position, the people who lose accept the result. They accept the will of the people. They congratulate the people who won, and they live to fight another day. That peaceful transfer of power is the essence, the very essence of our representative democracy. Trump refuses to accept that. Trump refuses to participate in that. He refuses to accept the results when he loses. That is a direct threat to our representative democracy. Now, it's worse than that, right? Not only in 2020 did Trump not accept the results, not only did he not concede, he tried to overthrow a fucking American election, Wendy. Donald Trump did everything he could do. He abused the powers of his office. He committed crimes. He incited a violent attempt to overthrow an American election. First time in American history. By the way, first time in American history in 2020 that a sitting American president lost an election and refused to accept the result. It had happened, I think, 11, 12 times in our history. Sitting presidents lose an election. Donald Trump's the only one who did not accept the result. He tried to overthrow an election. Wendy, I think even you know and believe that an American president committing crimes, pressuring the Justice Department, pressuring state officials, pressuring members of Congress, creating fake electors, pressuring his own vice president, right, to overthrow a legitimate American election. That's a threat to democracy. Donald Trump lies about our elections. He constantly lies again about election results. That's hitting, attacking again the very essence of our representative democracy. Donald Trump purposely is trying to sow distrust in our elections process. Again, the heartbeat of our representative democracy. We do not have a representative democracy if we do not all accept the transfer of power. If losers don't accept the results, if those people who lose don't accept the results, and their people and followers and supporters, therefore, don't accept the results, if half of America believes our elections are illegitimate, we no longer have a representative democracy. That's just one example of how Donald Trump is a real, direct, existential threat to our democracy. He refuses to accept the results when he loses. And newsflash, warning America, he's going to do it again this year. That's a threat to democracy. Now, Wendy, that's just one. Everybody else listening, that's just one. I think, again, I'm going to start a series, How Donald Trump is a Threat to Democracy. Let me count the ways. I'll give you one every week. Thanks for listening. I'm Joe Walsh. This is White Flag with Joe Walsh. All one word, my email, joewalshwhiteflag@gmail.com. joewalshwhiteflag@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Be brave.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, share, and follow White Flag with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been White Flag with Joe Walsh.